You cannot say no without feeling that drop in your stomach. You say yes before you even check your own energy. You bend, you soften, you overexplain, you rescue, and then you lie to yourself and call it kindness. But every time you try to put yourself first, guilt floods your body so fast it feels like danger. You think that means you have a good heart. You are wrong. What you call niceness may be the oldest leash on your mind. It may be childhood conditioning so deep you started calling your captivity your personality. And until you understand the dark psychology of why you were trained to be weak, you will keep volunteering for your own exploitation. So prepare yourself. We are not polishing your nice persona today. We are cutting the strings. That line explains more of your life than most therapy ever will. Carl Jung saw something terrifying. A child does not arrive as a people pleaser. A child becomes one when love, safety, and approval are made conditional. When a parent cannot carry their own fear, rage, insecurity, disappointment, or emptiness, the child gets recruited to carry it for them. The child learns to smile on command. The child learns to predict moods. The child learns that being easy is safer than being real. And years later, that child grows into an adult who still calls submission being a good person. So ask the forbidden question. What if your entire personality is just a survival mechanism you developed to appease the people who suppressed you? What if the traits you are most proud of, being agreeable, patient, selfless, endlessly understanding, are not proof of virtue at all? What if they are the marks of training? What if your guilt is not moral wisdom but old programming? What if the reason you keep attracting selfish people, manipulators, and emotional parasites is because your nervous system was trained to confuse obedience with love? This is why people-pleaser psychology is not a cute personality quirk. It is a blueprint for exploitation. It is the silent contract that says other people's comfort matters more than your truth. It is why you freeze when someone is disappointed. It is why you feel responsible for the moods of adults. It is why you apologize when you have done nothing wrong. It is why you keep trying to earn peace from people committed to keeping you useful. In this video, you are going to see exactly how the trap was built. You are going to understand the Carl Jung shadow you were trained to bury. You are going to learn why your body reacts to boundaries as if they are threats. You are going to see how the family scapegoat and the golden good child are both roles inside the same broken system. You are going to understand shadow work not as spiritual decoration but as manipulation defense. And you are going to leave with a new posture, one built for real power dynamics, not childhood compliance. Because once you see that your niceness was engineered, you stop feeling guilty for outgrowing it. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a severed in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. The identity that says, "I am just a nice person," usually hides something much darker underneath it. Not evil, fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of punishment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being called selfish, fear of losing connection, fear of becoming the problem child again. Being nice is not a personality trait. It is a lack of boundaries. That line hits hard because you were taught the opposite. You were rewarded for being easy. You were praised for being mature, calm, helpful, selfless, low maintenance, forgiving. But look closely at what those words often meant inside a controlling home. They meant quiet when you were hurt. They meant available when you were drained. They meant agreeable when you were angry. They meant invisible when you had needs. This is the hidden engine of people-pleaser psychology. It starts when a child realizes that authenticity has consequences. In some homes, sadness is inconvenient. Anger is disrespect. Disagreement is betrayal. Curiosity is defiance. Independent thought is arrogance. So the child becomes brilliant at one thing, self-erasure. You learn to study faces, tones, footsteps, doors, silence. You become fluent in emotional weather. You become what the room requires. And because you were praised for adapting, you never noticed the cost. You thought your hyper-awareness was empathy. You thought your overgiving was love. You thought your endless patience was character. But much of it was strategy, childhood strategy, survival strategy, the strategy of a nervous system that learned very early that being real was expensive. This is why the Carl Jung shadow matters here. Whatever part of you was unacceptable in childhood did not disappear. It went underground. Your anger went underground. Your refusal went underground. Your selfishness, in the healthy sense, went underground. Your capacity to say no, to offend, to confront, to leave, to disappoint, to prioritize yourself, all of it was exiled from the surface of your personality. The more polished the nice persona became, the more power was buried in the dark. The child who is never allowed to be angry becomes the adult who is always used. That is not poetry, that is mechanics. Every relationship you enter carries your training into the present. Every friendship, romance, job, and family interaction becomes a stage where the old role tries to reassert itself. You overfunction, you anticipate, you soothe, you fix, you absorb, and then you resent the people who accept what you keep offering. That resentment is not proof that you are bad. It is evidence that your buried self is fighting for oxygen. This is also why the family scapegoat matters, even if you were known as the good one. In unhealthy homes, roles are fluid masks serving the same structure. One child acts out the family's denied pain and becomes the family scapegoat. Another child learns to suppress pain and becomes the peacekeeper. Sometimes you were both at different times. Sometimes you were adored as long as you complied and attacked the moment you developed a will. That is how unstable power works. You were not loved for being yourself. You were managed for being useful. And once you see that, the mask starts cracking. You stop calling your conditioning virtue. You start calling it what it was, training. Now we go deeper. Why does saying no feel physically wrong to you? Why do you feel a rush of guilt for resting, declining, pulling back, charging more, asking for respect, taking space, or refusing to rescue grown adults from the consequences of their choices? The answer is simple and brutal. Your body remembers what your mind normalized. There is one specific biological reaction you have when setting a boundary. Here is how to hack it. That pit in your stomach, that sudden heat, that urge to explain, that trembling need to soften the boundary the second you state it, that is not your conscience speaking. That is your survival system firing. Somewhere in your childhood, setting limits became associated with emotional danger. Maybe it led to withdrawal, maybe it led to mockery, maybe it led to rage, maybe it led to guilt trips, tears, slammed doors, long silences, or the cold sentence every controlled child learns to fear: after everything I do for you, Ufa. Your guilt is just the ghost of a manipulative parent whispering in your ear. This is where dark psychology becomes clarifying. Guilt is one of the most effective social control tools in existence because it bypasses logic. It makes you police yourself. No chains are needed when your own body drags you back into compliance. That is why manipulation defense starts with a radical distinction. Guilt is not always evidence that you are wrong. Sometimes it is evidence that you are changing. Read that again. Sometimes guilt is not a moral alarm. It is a withdrawal symptom from conditioning. This explains why power dynamics feel so strange to you. In healthy power dynamics, boundaries increase respect. In unhealthy power dynamics, boundaries trigger attack. The people who benefited from your compliance feel robbed when you become difficult to use. That is why your first few no's often create chaos, not because the boundary is cruel, but because the old arrangement was. Narcissists do not target weak people. They target nice people who were trained not to fight back. That is the hidden tragedy behind people-pleaser psychology. It attracts users because it signals low resistance. You explain too much. You forgive too quickly. You doubt your anger. You rush to restore harmony. You reveal your pressure points. To manipulative people, this is not kindness, it is access. So here is the first act of manipulation defense. Stop treating your guilt as truth. Start treating it as data. The next time you set a boundary and your body panics, do not instantly reverse yourself. Stay still. Breathe. Name it. This is old programming, not present danger. This discomfort is not a sign to retreat. It is the sensation of the leash tightening because you finally pulled. But the family shadow operates in total secrecy. Let me show you the exact phrases they use to program you. How many times did you hear some version of these lines? Do not be selfish, stop being dramatic, be the bigger person. Good children do not talk back. Keep the peace. Your tone is the problem. Why are you so sensitive? We were only joking. Family comes first. Do not embarrass us. After all we have done for you, look at how much your behavior affects everyone else. Do you see what those sentences have in common? They train one message into your nervous system. Your authenticity is dangerous, but your compliance is lovable. That is not morality. That is conditioning. Carl Jung understood that the family is not just a place of love, it is also a place of projection. Parents do not simply raise children. Very often they pour their own denied material into them. Their fear of conflict becomes your overcompliance. Their shame becomes your perfectionism. Their unlived ambition becomes your pressure. Their buried rage becomes your anxiety. Their emotional immaturity becomes your lifelong habit of reading rooms instead of reading yourself. If you think your parents just wanted you to be polite, you need to hear Jung's theory on the unlived life. The child becomes the carrier of what the adults refuse to face. That is why so many people who were raised by controlling, chaotic, or narcissistic caregivers do not feel like they have a self. They have a role. They have an adaptive interface. They know how to perform peace, but not how to recognize desire. This is the core wound behind the family scapegoat and the obedient child. One carries the family's disowned darkness openly. The other carries it secretly. The family scapegoat gets labeled difficult because they expose the lie. The good child gets praised because they hide it. But both are trapped by the same system. Both are shaped by distorted power dynamics. Both are taught that the family's comfort outranks the individual's reality. Every time you abandon your own needs to please another, you murder a piece of your soul. You feel the truth of that because you have lived it. You have smiled while resentful. You have agreed while exhausted. You have apologized while innocent. You have stayed while disrespected. You have answered messages you did not want to answer. You have said yes to preserve a peace that never included you. And because you were trained to call this love, you did not notice how much of your life was built from self-betrayal. This is where the Carl Jung shadow becomes non-negotiable. Your shadow is not just the ugly part of you. It is the disowned part of you. It is every impulse you were punished for before you had language. Your anger is in there. Your standards are in there. Your ambition is in there. Your sexual energy, your refusal, your contempt for hypocrisy, your appetite for solitude, your instinct to withdraw access. All of it is there. What you call peace may simply be the absence of your own force. And this is why shadow work is not optional for someone like you. Without shadow work, you remain split. The nice persona smiles while the buried self rots. The surface says yes, while the body says no. The mouth says, "It is fine," while the nervous system screams. That split is exhausting. It drains your confidence because somewhere inside you know you are not speaking from your full weight. In dark psychology, split people are easy to read, easy to guilt, easy to pressure, easy to recruit because they do not have access to their full range. They are overdeveloped in agreeableness and underdeveloped in force. They can care, but they cannot stop. They can understand, but they cannot refuse. They can absorb, but they cannot end. That is not goodness. That is disarmament. Do not confuse shadow integration with becoming toxic. It is the exact opposite. Let me explain. Most people fear their aggressive side because they only know aggression in its distorted form. They think anger means abuse. They think refusal means cruelty. They think assertiveness means becoming the people who hurt them. So they stay soft, exposed, and overly available because it feels morally safer. But Jung saw the danger in that. A person with no conscious relationship to their power does not become virtuous. They become governable. Jung realized that true morality requires the capacity for destruction. A harmless man is not moral. He is just incapable. That is the line your conditioning never let you hear. The integrated adult is not someone who has no dark impulses. The integrated adult is someone who can access force without being possessed by it, someone who can say no without collapsing, someone who can feel anger without becoming chaos, someone who can disappoint others without feeling evil, someone who can walk away, close the door, end the call, leave the table, decline the invitation, fire the client, ignore the bait, and sleep at night. That is the buried wolf inside your system. Not violence, not malice, capacity. When you finally integrate the monster, your entire aura will shift. Here is what people will notice first. You will stop over-explaining. Your speech will slow down. Your yes will become expensive. Your no will become clean. Your face will stop asking for permission. Your body will stop leaning toward people who are trying to extract from you. And manipulative people will feel it before they understand it. The atmosphere changes when someone is no longer available for easy control. This is the practical meaning of the Carl Jung shadow. It is not abstract mysticism. It is the recovery of your missing permissions. Permission to want, permission to refuse, permission to judge, permission to leave, permission to protect your time, permission to let people be disappointed. Permission to stop translating yourself into a language that only benefits those who exploit you. Shadow work begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I stay nice while setting a boundary?" and start asking, "Why am I still worshipping niceness when it keeps making me betray myself?" That question changes everything, because now the goal is no longer to remain universally approved. The goal is to become internally aligned. You stop polishing the persona that got rewarded in childhood. You start strengthening the part of you that can hold tension. And the more tension you can hold, the less life can manipulate you through guilt. Here is the part most people miss. Your aggression was never the enemy. Your unconscious aggression was the problem. Repressed anger does not disappear. It leaks out as resentment, passive aggression, chronic fatigue, self-neglect, people-pleasing, martyrdom, and strange attraction to dominant personalities. Once conscious, that same force becomes direction. It becomes boundary. It becomes discernment. It becomes the ability to say calmly, "No, that does not work for me." That is not toxicity. That is adulthood. Now we turn this into action. The next time someone asks too much of you, pushes past your comfort, guilts you, pressures you, or assumes your availability, do not answer immediately. Delay is power. Your old personality says yes fast because it is trying to avoid tension. Your new self pauses because it is checking reality. Here is the exact psychological script you must repeat in your head the next time you feel guilty. Their disappointment is not my danger. Say it again. Their disappointment is not my danger. For a child, displeasing authority could feel dangerous. For an adult, it is often just uncomfortable. People-pleaser psychology confuses those two states. Boundary work separates them. Then make your boundary simple, not theatrical, not apologetic, not drenched in justification. No, I am not available for that. That does not work for me. I need time to think. I am not discussing this. I am leaving now. I can help with this part, not that part. Clean language is manipulation defense because it leaves less material for emotional negotiation. And watch what happens next. In distorted power dynamics, your first boundary will not be met with applause. It will be met with pressure. They will call you selfish, cold, rude, dramatic, difficult, ungrateful, changed, good. That is information. Healthy people adjust. Unhealthy people escalate. In stage 7, you will face the ultimate test from your family or friends. If you fail here, the chains lock again. The test is this. Can you tolerate being misunderstood without rushing to self-betrayal? Can you let them have their story while you keep your boundary? Can you withstand the smear, the guilt trip, the sad face, the silence, the accusation, the "you are not the same anymore," without surrendering your own position? That is where shadow work becomes visible, not in journals, not in quotes, in live fire. The family scapegoat knows this test better than anyone. The moment they stop absorbing the system's dysfunction, the system brands them disloyal. But the so-called good child faces the same trap when they begin to wake up. The family does not only resist your anger, it resists your independence because your old role kept the machine stable. So hold the line. Do not over-explain. Do not argue with chronic boundary violators about your right to have boundaries. Do not seek validation from the people losing access to you. This is advanced manipulation defense. You are not trying to win consensus. You are trying to end unauthorized access. There is one more shift that matters. Stop measuring your morality by how convenient you are to others. That old metric was built by people who benefited from your lack of self. Build a new one. Are you honest? Are you direct? Are you respectful? Are you congruent? Are you taking responsibility for your choices? Good. Then let the guilt burn off. It is not guidance, it is residue. The final stage is not becoming cold in every direction. It is becoming selective. It is learning that care without boundaries is self-abandonment, and boundaries without care are just armor. The sovereign adult can do both. They can love and refuse. They can give and stop. They can stay soft without staying exposed. They can understand someone's pain without volunteering to become its container. The final stage of the sovereign adult unlocks a level of respect you have never experienced, not because you start dominating rooms with noise, but because your energy stops begging, your presence stops leaking, your words stop scrambling for approval. In real power dynamics, that changes everything. People feel when your kindness is a choice instead of a compulsion. They feel when your help is offered from strength instead of fear. They feel when your silence is not confusion, but discernment. This is the adult version of the Carl Jung shadow, fully integrated. Your light is no longer fake because it is backed by force. Your generosity becomes cleaner because it is no longer coerced. Your compassion becomes sharper because it includes yourself. Your boundaries become believable because they are enforced. Your shadow work is now visible in the way you walk away from manipulation, in the way you stop trying to rescue people who enjoy drowning, in the way you refuse to relive childhood with every selfish person who enters your life. And yes, some people will like you less. That is the price of becoming real. But the people who matter will trust you more. Why? Because they can feel the difference between performance and integrity. The old you was nice to everyone and safe for no one, especially not yourself. The new you is clear. The new you is solid. The new you does not hand over access just because someone asks. That is why dark psychology matters when healing alone is not enough. It teaches you how exploitation actually works. It shows you why manipulators reward softness without standards. It reveals why your guilt was engineered. It exposes how people-pleaser psychology keeps competent adults trapped in child roles. And then it gives you the only real answer: conscious power. You stop saying, "This is just who I am." You start saying, "This is how I survived, and I no longer need to survive that way." That sentence is liberation. You are not obligated to remain recognizable to the people who benefited from your fragmentation. You are not obligated to stay sweet enough to be consumed. You are not obligated to carry the emotional debts of your parents, your partner, your boss, your siblings, or your friends. The strings can be cut. The nervous system can be retrained. The role can die. The self can emerge. And when that happens, something almost unfair takes place. The same world that once treated your softness as permission begins to treat your clarity as law, not because you became cruel, because you became coherent. You do not need everyone to like you. You need access to your full self. You do not need to be the good child forever. You need to become the adult your childhood never allowed. You do not need more guilt. You need more reality. That is the threshold. Cross it, and you will never again confuse being used with being loving. You started as the programmed good child, the one who thought niceness was identity, the one who believed guilt was goodness, the one who kept volunteering for emotional labor and calling it love. Now you can see the trap. Your personality was shaped under pressure. Your people-pleasing was adaptive. Your fear of no was installed. Your overgiving was rewarded because it made you manageable. That recognition should not fill you with shame. It should fill you with anger first, then relief. Because once conditioning is visible, it is no longer fate. This is the transition from the good child to the sovereign, integrated adult. You stop living as a response to the past. You stop calling self-erase your character. You stop negotiating with ghosts. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were sent underground. You take the buried anger, the buried standards, the buried hunger for freedom, and you bring them into conscious order. That is the real use of the Carl Jung shadow, not to make you darker for the sake of darkness, but to make you whole enough that no one can keep ruling you through guilt. Kill the nice persona, or let it kill your potential. The choice is yours, so make it real. Comment, cut the strings. If you are done confusing obedience with virtue, subscribe if you are ready to think like a sovereign adult instead of a trained appeaser, because this is where shadow work becomes strategy, where manipulation defense becomes identity, where the family scapegoat and the good child finally understand the game they were forced to play, and where you learn to move through power dynamics without surrendering yourself just to keep the peace. To understand how to deploy this new integrated power in the real world, click the video on screen. See what others miss, know what others fear, become who others can't.